What's up, YouTube? We're gonna have a little discussion today while I sit in endless traffic from opening day. So this is gonna be kind of a continuing discussion. You're gonna hear me talk about a lot of these things over and over again in different discussions I have planned coming up. But today I wanted to talk about yo-yo community growth, and I know I've talked about this before, and how do we get there, and where do we go from here? So, from my perspective, the yo-yo community is still a rather small, niche community, and I swear to God, if any of you leave me a note or a comment below that says, we're always going to be a niche community, and you're serious about it, because I know you guys like to joke with me, that, oh, it's always going to be this way, and it's never going to get bigger, I'm going to tell you you're wrong, and I'm probably not going to be nice to you in the comments, and that's going to be that. But what do we need to grow? How do we get out there? Because everybody that sees you yo-yo or that sees somebody yo-yo is always like, oh, wow, that's really cool. Especially, I mean, I'm not that good. You know, you guys have seen. I'm acceptably decent and not super terribly bad, but I'm nowhere near a world-class competitor. And people think it's cool when I yo-yo. They think it's cool when I yo-yo at work. They think yo-yos are cool. And it generally comes off positively. But how do we take that into a positive and more large-scale growth? Well, of course, anything that's going to grow needs money. And that's part of really, I think, where yo-yoing is stagnated, is there's not always money. But there is money in certain pockets of it, but it's just not enough, or it's not seen as lucrative enough to get those advertising dollars. You know what I mean? So, and I say this a lot of times, but I think it all starts with just how the content is presented. Yes, yo-yo tricks are great, and yo-yo tricks in an individual snippet basis on Instagram are fantastic. However, there is a void that I try to fill a little bit, but I'm not really the personality to do it, of just talk on yo-yo in the midst of yo-yo tricks. And we're getting better. Things are getting better with that. So now there's me, there's Dylan Kowalski, there's Tokyo, there's Throws Definitive. There's a lot of guys who are coming on. The Scales guys are doing a live stream podcast thing that's really fun. I actually was on with them about a week ago. It was really fun, really cool. I really like Bergie's insights on stuff, and Mark Mangaren's really cool too. Colin's on there a lot too, and they're some of the best yo-yo players in the world, and they're hanging out talking about yo-yos, throwing up yo-yo tricks, talking about them, and they're the guys who could do that, and it's really great to see that. And, you know, I feel like stuff like that really is what the community needs to grow, and so far, so good. That's coming in. That we're getting a little bit of that community input and growth, but at the same time, we need more of that. And I think it needs to spawn sort of out of, you know, besides there just being the sort of YouTube channels and podcasts and things like that, which are great. Those need to continue. But we need to build out of that into a sort of TV. Are you going to let me over? Into a sort of TV friendly type of thing. You know, for instance, like, so if we have the opportunity before a yo-yo contest happens, I'm going to try to work on this for next year for East Coast Masters, is try to get on the local news to say, hey, you know, we're out here, we're having this yo-yo contest, and we think it's a really worthwhile event for even people who don't play yo-yo to come out and see, because there's going to be a lot of good yo-yo players there, there's going to be a lot of people there ready to teach you, and, you know, I feel like getting people on, you know, television, at least just like a local news level, before a contest is a great thing. So one of the first things that I ever saw, before I had met Tyler, before I had met Kai, they actually were on the local news here in Pittsburgh to promote what was at that point in time Recess's school tour, and that was really successful. It helped build up our scene here in Pittsburgh, and we're still seeing that scene growth and positivity because of that. Now, there was a lot of other work that went into that as well. It wasn't just, hey, we're here on the news, and now the yo-yo scene's big in Pittsburgh. We're still working on that and growing it, but there was a lot of, like, that work really helped cement our validity and our growth here in Pittsburgh, and this kind of was a good starting point for us. And so we have since continued on that road and continued on that like build to be just, you know, growing to where we are today, able to host a really good contest and just continue to grow from there. Club has never been as big as it is right now. We got a lot of good throwers that come to Yo-Yo Club, and that's been great. So, but to take that growth sort of from individual community levels and sort of make it national, at least in America, I don't really have a whole lot of overseas push, and I don't understand how those markets work necessarily, but to take that sort of thing that works in a very national level and have it happen all over the place really would help boost. So that type of thing, like being able to get the news involved and stuff like that prior to a state, local contest, something like that, is, I think, really a big deal because it can get more people out, get more people interested in it. The other thing is, at some point, some of the biggest major contests, regionals, nationals, world contests, somehow we got to figure out how to get this stuff onto like ESPN 8, the Ocho, because as of right now, it's, you know, I don't want to say that we're having, you know, trouble or whatever, but it's like the national sports broadcasting just is non-existent for yo-yos. And that wasn't always the case. When I was a kid in the 90s, you could watch yo-yo competitions on TV sometimes. And I remember seeing them. Now, that was during the yo-yo boom, and things were different then, and I'm not saying things are the same as they were at that point in time. However, you know, here we are, and we're still sort of having a similar, I don't want to say issue, but we're sort of back into that growth thing, and what the heck? We've got, you know, no national coverage for large contests, and maybe that'll change. Hopefully it will. The National Yo-Yo Contest, or the National Yo-Yo Contest. The National Yo-Yo Contest will be in Chicago this year. Hopefully there's some sort of coverage for that. And then the World Yo-Yo Contest in 2019 will be back in Cleveland, and again, hopefully we get a little bit of coverage for that. I realized the last year, and you know, maybe the year before that, there wasn't so much maybe U.S. coverage, because especially last year it was in Iceland, and this year it's going to be in China, so not going to be so much U.S. coverage of that because it's not in America, and nobody's going to send anybody overseas to cover a yo-yo contest. That just doesn't make sense. But, you know, local affiliates can show up and cover something in Chicago or Cleveland because that's a lot easier, and then that sort of gets national exposure, at least nationally. So hopefully that's something that can occur here in the very near future in the next coming years. But prior to that, I really think on the national level, we need to get out there and try to be getting on national news and things like that. So that's the first type of thing, is just more, you know, media exposure that's not such integral yo-yo media exposure. Exposure that's more news level exposure. Hey, there's this event going on in your town. Come hang out. It'll be fun. Fun for kids. You know, that's the kind of thing you want to hear about, and that's the kind of stuff that's great on local news. So we were kind of, I guess we didn't think about it, and we didn't jump anybody on the local news this year for East Coast Masters. Next year, that's a thing I want to do. Absolutely, and, you know, there's going to be enough, we have enough of the fundamental stuff already done from this year that I think we can start adding to it next year by, you know, trying to set up just going on the news and talking about it before it happens. That's the stuff local news guys really like, and local stuff is really good. So if we keep doing that, if we keep sort of being vigilant on that kind of stuff on the local level, I feel like it becomes much easier to sort of put together a portfolio to grow it on a very national level when we want recognition for national contests. And when national recognition happens that there are national contests, that's a good way to sort of build national, like, awareness for what yo-yo has become today. So moving on from that, the other thing that I think needs to be, and I'm going to talk more about this in future videos, is that there needs to be some sort of an incentive for players, not only to go to contests, but to continue to yo-yo and to continue to be good at yo-yo and to continue to push forward. So you know, and how do we do that? Right now, the way it works is the better yo-yo players get signature gear, signature colorways, signature yo-yos, mostly just yo-yos though, and you know, they sell some yo-yos and they get revenue based off of those yo-yos that they sell. Yo-Yo Factory does a really great job with this. Duncan does too. And whereas, you know, somebody will get a signature yo-yo, think Evan DeGao with the Edge, and you know, the plastic ones that are coming out, the Wedge. Evan sat here with me and we talked about those. So Yo-Yo Factory does a good job. Think about Gentry Stein with the shutters and all that kind of stuff. They do a really good job with the signature yo-yos, but at the same time, you know, they can't just do that just with them, and it shouldn't all be on Yo-Yo Factory's shoulders necessarily to sponsor every good player and give them a yo-yo that the revenue sales from that are going to generate more. And some companies just aren't big enough to give everybody a signature yo-yo and give them a percentage of those yo-yo sales, at least from my understanding. They're not necessarily big enough to do that. Maybe there's some accounting or something that can be done there where that would be a lucrative thing. But signature gear, I feel like, is really kind of, at least in yo-yo, sort of a missed opportunity, because we have all these great players who, some of them have signature gear, but some of them don't. And some of them just have their name on stuff sometimes, and it's like, oh, here's this one, you know, color, limited to whatever, how many pieces, it's this guy's colorway. But there's so much more into that. So let me throw it at guitars here for a second. So let's say you're Zakk Wylde. Now, I'm not Zakk Wylde, but, you know, Zakk Wylde played for Ozzy Osbourne, probably one of the most recognizable guitarists in the last 30 years, and is still very recognizable today. Well, what can you get of Zakk Wylde? Everything. You can get his guitar, you can get his pedals, you can get his amplifiers, you can get his own signature string sets, picks, anything that you can think of that you could play guitar with, except I think for cables, but there might be Zakk Wylde cables, I might be wrong. You know, signature amps, signature cabinets, stuff like that. Pretty much anything like that you can get with Zakk Wylde's name on it. And he gets a percentage of that revenue, and he doesn't make money recording and tour. I mean, he makes a little bit of money touring, but I would say a huge majority of his revenue and the money that he makes comes from the products that he endorses, that are his signature products, that he sells the crap out of, because he's a great salesman of his own brand and his personality. And I feel like we sort of miss out on that in the yo-yo community, where, you know, yeah, Gentry Stein's got a shutter and he's got a replay and stuff like that, but can you buy Gentry Stein yo-yo strings? No. Can you buy Gentry Stein signature ball bearings? No. Can you buy Gentry Stein signature pads? No. Like response pads? No. So we sort of miss out on all of that, and yo-yo players themselves really sort of miss out on all of that, and we sort of miss out on a lot of that customizable tweakage, to where, you know, you can get all those signature things, and maybe you like, you know, maybe you like Gentry Stein's bearings, but you like the Edge better than the shutter, and you put those bearings in the Edge, and then, you know, you like Paul Kerbel's strings, and you use Paul Kerbel's strings. But to me, it seems like there's so much just generic in that, and not that, you know, Zakk Wylde's strings are wildly different than the generic strings. They're not. You see that? Wildly different? It's a great pun. They're not, but at the same time, we sort of miss out on that, like, sort of star power aspect of all of the other gear accessories. You know what I'm talking about? And I feel like that's a change and a tweak that could happen, and hopefully is going to happen. I'm, you know, the string thing, there are a few players that have their own signature strings, and hopefully that's going to be a little bit more honed in and a little bit more perfected. Me personally, you can get my preferred Zipline strings at ziplinestrings.com. Please check the links down in the description for that. But that's sort of not because I'm a great player or anything. It's just because I bother Jeremy and I'm like, what about this color? And I like this color, and I think it should be this length and this thinness and all that. And mostly because I'm annoying. And Jeremy wouldn't call it that, but I'm just going to say I'm generally annoying to him, because that's how I get things, because that's what I did. But anyway, there needs to be more of that, and more of that for people who are better yo-yo players than me. But in addition, those players just need to be out there more. I had mentioned the Recess sort of school tour, and Recess doing it. Now, I'm not saying everybody's got to do a school tour, but, you know, what Andrew Bergen and what the rest of the Scales Collective is doing is fantastic. But I also wish that more yo-yo players did that. I feel like Ann Connolly does a really good job at that. She's got a YouTube channel, and her channel is great. If you're not subscribed to Ann, but somehow you're subscribed to me and you didn't know, like, you should go subscribe to Ann too, because she's good. But she's not as consistent with it, because not like she's in school, like she's a college student, she's busy. And you know, I guess Brandon Vu is really the other one. Brandon does a fantastic job, and Brandon's videos are pretty consistent and really very good. So, you know, there are a few people, but I feel like there needs to be more who are out there, not just on Instagram, but who are out there in sort of a very personable, face-to-face kind of way, putting out content that's not just yo-yo tricks, because tricks are great, but talk's really good too. And, you know, you think about how often we watch football. Well, you know, you watch maybe one football game a week, 2 football games a week, but you probably listen to talk radio about it every day. Maybe not you personally, but there's a lot of guys who listen to a lot more football talk than they watch minutes of football, and I feel like yo-yo is kind of a very similar thing there. So I know this has kind of gone on for a while, and I've sort of rambled and hit a bunch of different topics, but community growth is going to be a thing I'm going to be talking about a good bit, and how to do it, why it's important, and I think we can do it. I don't want to hear any naysayers. If you naysay me in the comments about, oh, it's always going to be niche, I'm going to make fun of you. Sorry, and I'll probably make fun of you in the next video. So maybe you want to do it, because maybe that's cool. Maybe that's your thing. But that's going to do it for me today, guys. I'm going to go get some dinner. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe. I do videos pretty much every day if it's not a holiday or something. And, yeah, it's a good time here at Threads and Brews channel. But thanks for watching, guys. I'm not drinking anything, but I'm going to go get some dinner. So cheers to you. I'll see you next time.